Good afternoon and welcome to Politics in the Pulpit here on your hometown station. This is the Bishop of Santa Clarita back for another opportunity to talk about the two things we are not supposed to talk about in public, but we do anyway, religion and politics. And yes, they do indeed mix. By the way, if you were wondering at the beginning of the show who was doing our intro, Jen, who was that?
That is a piped-in voice.
Was that a Mr. AI?
We've updated.
We've updated.
Just a little refresher.
So we kicked the Italian stallion out, and we've put in the AI guy.
We're just a refresh.
I just think
Spring
that's
cleaning.
funny. That is so funny. I
It's
cannot
spring
wait
cleaning.
to call that guy after the show
You
and
have
tell him what
to
happened.
update things every once in a
Okay,
while.
all right.
Things
Well,
get a little stale. So
all right.
just
well,
a refresher.
We'll talk about that a little bit later. But anyway, good to have you guys on today here on station AM 1220 and 98.1 FM. I had a little brain freeze there, folks. We have two guests today. A little bit later, we're going to hear from Christina Irwin, running for state senate down in the Palisades area. Christina, of course, is no stranger to our show, and so we'll be asking her a series of questions, and it'll be great to kind of catch up on her candidacy. But today, unlike Christina, who's calling in, we've got a gentleman by the name of Mike Kozlow running for Congress in the 26th Congressional District, which is actually going to be a part of our district here once Prop 50 comes into play next year. Mike has served our country in the United States Air Force. He has a bachelor's degree from Chapman University and a degree from Georgetown University in 2007 and USC. So welcome to the show, Mike Kozlow.
Great to be here, and thank you for having me on again.
And by the way, for those of you that are watching online, I know you're going to probably think this is really tough, but Mike is how old?
65.
65 years old. I thought at lunch today that he was about my age. Whoa, was I wrong.
I like to work out and stay in shape. And
You're
thank
well
goodness to my-
preserved. You're well. If you were an Egyptian, you'd be a mummy.
Great genetics.
Okay. Well, under Prop 50, as I just mentioned, Mike, and the redrawn lines, part of your district is actually going to run up through Santa Clarita. So explain to our listeners a little bit of where that's going to fall.
Actually, because of Prop 50, we are actually picking up it's like going home again, because now the district goes up to a familiar territory, which is all the way up from goes from Piru, diverts up along the Castaic area and part of Santa Clarita Valley, and goes all the way up to the Antelope Valley up by Quartz Hill and Palmdale, Lancaster.
It's amazing when the Democrats took out their box of crayons and redrew these districts.
You would think so.
It is totally amazing how they've kind of reconfigured this thing.
Yeah, there seems to be no rhyme or reason, at least from the general public's perspective, but certainly from our perspective, this was all intentional to be able to go ahead and maximize the Democrat, from my perspective, their ability to be able to get more votes and less votes from the Republican perspective.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but I believe this is your second congressional run.
Yes.
And what is the difference on the ground that you're feeling from your first run to this second run?
I think overwhelmingly, I think people had an opportunity to really see what happened and how devastating the Biden administration and the effects it had on overall on the American public and the individual communities and on just life in general for the families. And I think people are coming around. They're recognizing that those that were sitting on the fence initially are actually coming over and saying, okay, this is the kind of a lifestyle I want to have. I want the spiritualism, the morality, and the ability to prosper and retain our own money, and that the fraud that we're seeing right now is becoming very, very self-evident. And I think people are seeing that. They're frustrated, and they're willing to go ahead and come over to us.
I'm going to talk to you about that fraud in just a minute here, because I just learned something about Mike a little bit ago that was interesting. And we'll bring that up in just a second. But let me ask you this question, Mike. As I mentioned during lunch, I'm California born and bred. I love California. I think the weather's great here. You couldn't tell today. Obviously, we've had a little rain, but even that is not all that bad compared to what folks are doing in Buffalo, New York right now, or Minnesota. Obviously, we've got great weather, but we have been going downhill in terms of just the cost of living, I guess uphill for that, but downhill for the rest of us. Cost of living, gas prices are again starting to incrementally creep back up from some of their lows a couple weeks ago. What are you're running in the district, Mike? How can Mike Kozlow make a difference in D.C. / the state of California when it comes to cost of living for those in California?
And good question. You know, we were at a point under the Biden administration where inflation had gone all the way up to about 9.2, 9.3%. Now we're back down about 2.7, thankfully. But we're not there yet. The prices are not coinciding with just because of the inflation levels have come down. Prices still have a long way to go on so many different commodities and things that we're dealing with. So what I'm looking at back in, from my perspective, I'm already involved in a variety of different activities that I'm working on with congressional leaders now and community leaders. But what I hope to be able to do when I get back to D.C. is sit on one of the different types of committees, the Ways and Means committees and others that have an influential impact from a positive perspective on everyday Americans' lives, and especially within our respective communities. Find opportunities for them to be able to grow their respective businesses. We saw this mass exodus in closing because of the overregulation of what we have here in California right now. Businesses, whether they're small businesses or even multi-billion-dollar businesses, are exiting California because they cannot just deal with those different types of overburdened regulations that they have to contend with. So what I'm looking at is reducing regulations. The Trump administration, thankfully, working through SBA and other organizations, Kelly Loeffler and others, are working right now to reduce the burdens on everyday Americans from a business perspective and to put money back in the pockets of Americans as well. So I'm a staunch advocate of being able to do those things that make sense, also collectively working with subject matter experts in these areas. I don't have all the answers, but I certainly know who to go to and who to talk to be able to put together sound and good policy that makes sense. Common sense is what's lacking in Washington, D.C. right now, and has for quite a long time. So we're trying to get people like myself and others that have a like mindset to bring back common sense into decision-making and the policies that we formulate to be able to go ahead and make things better for the average American citizen.
Yeah. You sound like someone that knows how the sausage is made,
Yes.
if you will. And obviously, the average Joe out there isn't as interested in that as the outcome of that sausage-making process. And I think what Republican voters in particular, maybe right-leaning Democratic voters and independent voters, I think they want a Republican Party and a Republican candidate like yourself who can explain the sausage-making process but also deliver on that. Because what ends up happening, and I think you know this, Mike, considering you've been in the state for a while, is the rhetoric sounds great running, right? You run and you sound great and you appeal to all these groups. And then something happens when you get into office, and maybe your desire is good, maybe I'm going to do this, and then something happens in Washington. Explain that to the people. That is there something that happens when you go to Washington where somehow convictions and all the things that you ran on and the rhetoric that you ran on, it kind of goes south?
Yeah, and again, and there lies the problem, is that you've got this mindset. We're sending the wrong candidates to begin with. Those that may sound great, tell you everything you want to hear, but can never, ever deliver because they don't have the genuine interest to do that and don't have the skill sets necessary to do that. One of the things that, you come in with a modest background, you've worked your way up, you've established yourself as a great businessman or businesswoman, and you have the ability to lead, and you have that experience and manage and organize and formulate new ideas and concepts, be open to new concepts and ideas, and to institute that. That being said, is that we need to get those kinds of people, like myself and others, to get back to Washington, D.C., that have collectively over a period of 20, 30, 40 years to be able to do things that make sense, but approached in the right way with the right people to institute new policies and programs that are going to benefit people. And how do you do that? And that's the question at the end of the day. At a very simplistic level, that how do you make the sausage is it's collectivism, it's collaboration, working with other people that are like-minded, that really want to accomplish something and get something done. Not for yourself, and say, hey, this has got Mike Coslow's name on it, I'm the sponsor of this bill. Not necessary. We don't need performative politicians. We see that on TV every day on C-SPAN. We need people that are going to go up there, roll up their sleeves, and get the job done. And that's really what it comes down to, is getting that collaboration, regardless of party many, many times. People that have that similar vision, if you will, find that common ground, that common thread to say, look, we both have the same concept, regardless of party affiliation. We want to get something done on this issue, whether it's immigration, whether it's affordability, whether it's public safety. Big one, education right now. That's what my doctorate's in. And push forward collaboratively to work things out. And there's the key word, collaboration. You may not see things from the same perspective, but the end goal is to accomplish something that's going to benefit the American public and the general people in your community.
Let's talk a little bit about immigration and the whole ICE thing that's happening right now. Obviously, that's a hot topic. That's ironic, huh? ICE is a hot topic. But anyway, we've got all these high schoolers, not only here in our state and in our district in particular, but also around the nation, that are, walking out of school and probably right around algebra or calculus when that's happening, and then they walk out, right? And they're protesting ICE, and they're saying they have signs that say no one's illegal. Well, let me ask you this question, Mike. First of all, are people illegal? And what is your solution to the immigration issue, not just for California, but nationally?
And that's a very complex question. 8 USC 1342, 48 and such, basically talks about
more of your
immigration.
Sausage-making abilities right there,
yes,
Mike.
Yes, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know, because sarcasm is wonderful. And, what it comes down, there are laws and rules and regulations that basically say this is how illegal immigration is perceived and what constitutes it. When you see 10,000 people coming across the border a day, obviously there's a problem there. You got to resolve it. Obviously, the last administration didn't lift a finger to do anything about that. So you've got to be able to be the adult in the room, and you got to stand up. You have a responsibility. You've taken an oath, and you've got to do something about it if you have a conscience. Maybe these people that were there before, I can't speak for them, but maybe they didn't have a conscience. So what it comes down to, in my mind, is when you talk about illegal immigration, it's a three-step process. First thing is you got to identify and clearly educate people, not only within the government, but the general everyday people out there. It's an education process. You're a coach. My job, I see, is to educate and let people know what the actual laws and the rules are, so that way you can distinguish between fact and fiction. This is what the law says. You're supposed to adhere to it, and not be out there protesting, spitting, blocking cars, and that kind of thing. That clearly is disruptive to federal law enforcement activities and operations. You can't do that. It's a violation of the law. But you've got to let people know that. From my perspective, already working with Congress, I'm not even in the job yet, but I'm working with congressional leaders right now on the Dignity Act of 2025. I'll give you that as an example. It doesn't provide amnesty. It doesn't provide a pathway to citizenship. Entirely different issue altogether. What the Dignity Act does, from my perspective, there's 35 sponsors and co-sponsors on that right now. Bipartisan, I might add, that collaboration we were talking about before, getting people to work together, is to talk about the work visa programs. And there's 4 main categories of that as it relates to the unskilled labor and the skilled labor and the professionals. And enables those individuals with usually the employer pays for an application for that, and usually sponsors that person, comes over, they get into the position, and they are sponsored here on the work visa that applies to them. And it's usually about $1,500 to $2,000. It's not cheap per employee. So we're working on, and I'll talk about that in a second. But that individual does, and is here legitimately now, and they are in a system, so they're trackable, they're traceable. They also get a new Social Security card, which means now they're in the system legitimately. They're paying into the system. Now, the key is they cannot collect on that Social Security until such time as that they gain their citizenship. So that means now there's an incentive to get that citizenship. They don't go to the front of the line. They go to the back of the line. It takes anywhere from 5 to 10 years sometimes to do that. And most of the people are very, very committed once they make that decision to do that. But that's what it comes down to, from my perspective, is get them here legally, get them working here legally. They're contributing to society. They're paying into society and into the coffers. And they are incentivized to get their legal citizenship in order to gain the fruits and benefit from the fruits of their labor, so to speak. So that's just the work visa side of the house. And I really advocate people go, the sponsor of the bill was Maria Salazar, Congresswoman Maria Salazar out of Florida. And she really is the one that put this together with Veronica Escobar. Maria is a Republican. Veronica is a Democrat out of Texas. So you see that collaboration going on, and I can't emphasize that enough, is that I think the system is a good one that's in place, that we're held to account. You see what the Donald Trump administration is doing right now. It has almost like a zero or a negligible number that are coming across the border illegally now. So because that has an adverse impact on our communities, who's paying for all of this? Our education, our medical, as far as in detracting from community services and everything. So it's a problem. So to deal with that is that we have a plan to deal with illegal immigration right now, and we just need to implement it and make sure that we don't have illegals voting illegally and have a ballot harvesting of people coming in that are not legal citizens that have the right to vote in this country.
If you're just joining us today on Politics in the Pulpit, we're talking to Mike Kozlow, who's running for Congress in the 26th Congressional District, and should he win, he is going to be a part of the Santa Clarita Valley. There is no doubt about that. When we come back in a few minutes here, I want to talk about Mike's connection to one of our gubernatorial candidates here in the state of California, and Mike's connection with some of the fraud that is happening here in California. And maybe for the next 30 seconds or so before we go to break, Mike, can you just speak very briefly without getting into everything? Obviously, Minnesota's been in the news for their fraud. Now it's off the front page because all of it's all about the ICE operations and what's happening there, which is rather convenient. Is there fraud in California? 30 seconds, Mike.
Absolutely. There's a heck of a lot of fraud. We know that $24 billion went to the railroad to nowhere. We know that $22 billion went to the homeless organizations and the NGOs. So yes, there's anywhere estimated between half a $1 trillion to $1 trillion right now in fraud over the last 15, 20 years.
And some of that could go into the coffers of the Mike Kozlow campaign to run for Congress, right? We want to make sure we get some of that money in there because not the fraud money, but you get my point.
Thank you.
All right, when we come back here on Politics in the Pulpit, we'll continue our conversation with Mike Kozlow and his potential connection to one of our gubernatorial candidates here in California when we return on your hometown station. All right, we're back here on your hometown station here, KHTS AM 1220 and 98.1 FM. Again, this is the Bishop of Santa Clarita. If you're just joining us, we are talking to Mike Kozlow, who's running for Congress in the 26th Congressional District, which under Prop 50 is going to run up through Fillmore, Piru, Castaic, and upper portions, northern portions of Santa Clarita. And so Mike Kozlow, should he win, or rather, should I say, when he wins, will end up being a representative here for our community. I wanted to talk about your Democratic opponents, because you've got more than one, at least when it comes to the primary. And we know it's a top two here in California, and it's a jungle primary. And it's funny, I was just telling somebody the other day that if what's happening in the polls, the top two gubernatorial candidates end up getting in the top two, that'll be the quickest way for the Democrats to get rid of the jungle primary. Because obviously they never really bargained for the fact that Republicans would end up pushing out Democrats. Usually it's the other way around. But who knows? If that happens, then you know, hell has frozen over and God has returned. There's no doubt about that. But I want to talk about your Democratic opponents. This state has been ruled by one party essentially for close to 20 years. We've not had a Republican governor since Arnold Schwarzenegger. We've not had a Republican senator in many years. Basically, Democrats have had their fingerprints on everything that is bad in California. So why do these Democrats even want to run against you? I mean, they should be ashamed of themselves. So who's running against you, Mike?
Well, it would have been Julia Brownley, who had been in office for about 12 years. came from a variety of different backgrounds, but mostly from the school districts down in the Malibu area. But that being said, and she sits on the Veterans Affairs committees and has done that before, and she's got a good reputation in that area from her perspective, but hasn't really accomplished very much, with the exception of one piece of legislation almost 10 years ago. Now she's just recently mentioned or has advised that she's going to be retiring here very soon at this particular this term, which is good for us because it really puts us in a great position again that we don't have an incumbent in the chair, which really in the past has been an adverse situation for us to overcome, a difficult situation at best. Now that that's the case, the heir apparent, if you will, Jackie Irwin, who's Assemblywoman in our district.
Not Christina Irwin, not to be confused with her.
Not Christina
No,
Irwin. No relationship. At least none that I know
Thank
of.
God.
Common sense does clearly prevail with Christina. Not with Jackie, I might add. But Jackie has had a familiarity with the business community, has been integrally involved in a variety of different things in that sector for about the same time that Julia Brownie has been in position, about 12 years. I'm sure there's some alignment there, obviously, because about an hour after Julia announced her retirement intentions, Jackie, ironically, was endorsed by Julia, and she's now the heir apparent for the Democrat Party. But interestingly enough, we refer to her with a degree of dignification as, tongue-in-cheek there, as the abstention queen. And it's interesting because anything that's controversial, and we know that there hasn't been anything controversial in the last several years.
No, not at all.
And but she seems to does not vote on those, and she's allowed to because there's a supermajority, and because of that, they don't need her vote.
She just abstains.
She just abstains, correct, on very controversial issues, and we can go into that. But ultimately, we know what those big issues are as far as in parental rights and many other things right now that seem to be counterintuitive for the everyday American. And it doesn't help the everyday American. Jackie is involved in the different committees, the business community, like I said, but she really doesn't do anything substantive. And every congressperson gets so many special projects that they can go ahead and attempt to get money for. And she'll be doing that like any other person as an assemblywoman in her past, or if she, God forbid, were able to get into Congress. But she's not really doing anything relative for the community on a day-to-day basis that benefits the community population. I'm going to be able to do that. She's got others out there that are to put their name in the hat, obviously to attempt to overwhelmingly get the vote from the Democrats, because they do outnumber us. We know that, recognize that. That's why it's so important for us to get those independents to come over and vote for us as well, and those within the religious sector as well, whether the Jews or the Christians, to be able to come over and start voting, recognizing that they cannot sit on that fence anymore. They've got to make a decision as it relates to, right now we see the American economy, we see other things happening that are benefiting America, getting us back on track. If the Democrats in the jungle primaries you pointed out are able to prevail out of that again, it's just going to put us right back where we were 2 years ago or a year and a half ago under the Biden administration. You're going to see a degradation of the American way of life again.
Well, let's pray and hope that does not happen, Mike, and that your name ends up being one of those in the two. I teased the crowd about your connection with one of our candidates for governor here in California. And we were talking a little bit off the air about your connection with Steve Hilton and the whole fraud thing that he's been talking about over the past several weeks. Flesh that out for our listeners, if you would, Mike.
Sure, very quickly. My background over 31 years concurrently. 31 years as a federal law enforcement agent working for the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, and then transitioned over as a detailee to the FBI for 8 years in Ventura and Los Angeles, and then finished up with the Department of Defense Inspector General's office, where I was conducting high-profile and very complex cases in a variety of different areas into fraud, waste, and abuse within the United States government and the Department of Defense specifically. All that being said, a lot of knowledge, a lot of education, a lot of experiences from multi-agency perspectives across the board, IRS, postal, Army, all the different weapons systems, and we collectively work together. So gain a lot of knowledge into forensic accounting, follow the money, as we used to say. And there's a lot of offshore accounts, shell companies, healthcare issues, and a lot of experience in that as well. When we did all of that, you have this culmination of what does it all mean? What is it all benefiting? I was very fortunate enough to be approached by Steve Hilton and his team and the creation. We saw what happened with Elon Musk and Doge and the success of being able to ferret out all this fraud and all these billions of dollars that the taxpayer has put into it, thinking in good faith that that money was being utilized for good intended purposes, when in fact we know it wasn't. Now we found that out, it's verified, validated, and we see everybody's got their hands in that. The NGO is a bad name right now because of that. And so when I was asked to jump up and jump into this and help out in the new Steve Hilton's new CalDOGE, Department of Office and Government Efficiency, I was honored because of the fact that all that experience, knowledge, we can take that education, working together with others like-minded people that have that degree of experience, and ferret out all of that, those billions and billions of dollars in fraud in the state of California.
You know what's interesting is we had an opportunity to interview Steve on the show back in April. I think it was very shortly after he jumped into the race. And I'm excited about both of our candidates for California governor because we've got a guy that's law and order. We've got Sheriff Chad Bianco, and obviously our state is in complete disarray when it comes to that. And of course, Steve Hilton, well, no matter what you think of him, at least he sounds good when he says it because he's British, right? So it just sounds so much better, even if it's not what you agree with. It just sounds so good. So I'm really glad that we have those two candidates. And in the past, we've had some Republicans that we just had to kind of hold our nose and vote for because obviously it's far more preferable than to vote Democrat. But I think we got two great candidates that we can choose from. You mentioned NGOs, and that's non-governmental organization, right? People will think, well, if it's non-governmental, then it must be good. Explain to our listeners that that just means the government doesn't have their fingerprints on something that they really have their fingerprints on. Go ahead.
No, and that's a very good analogy. NGOs are established as an intermediary. If you go ahead and provide some kind of a philanthropic or a genuine benefit as a government intermediary.
This is the Baptist Community Service Network.
There you go.
There it is.
There you go. And that being said, is you got folks that go out there and open up and start these NGOs with great intention and are getting funding for a variety of different government sources, your taxpayer dollars, and they have an inherent responsibility to use that money for its intended purpose. Well, we have NGOs out there, surprise, 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 that don't do that. And they're set up as nothing more than shell companies. We used to call them, when I was working for Anthem on their Special Investigations Unit years ago, as phantoms. And they were phantom companies. You walk up to the window and you just see boxes and there's nobody ever actually operating it. It's almost like the leaning organizations that's supposed to learning.
Mm-hmm. I got it. Minnesota.
Yeah. Thank you. So we used to actually go out and find these different organizations that were getting all these dollars, tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions even, with some of these insurers. And that's happening tenfold, if not 100-fold, with the United States government dollars that are being put into these NGOs, these front companies. And now, because of CalDOGE, we're going to be in a best position to be able to identify those, triage those, and focus ever so diligently to identify all those billions of dollars that are involved in fraud, waste, and abuse efforts throughout the state, tax dollars.
As we come to the conclusion here with Mike Kozlow, again, running for Congress in the 26th Congressional District, let me ask you a question, a couple more questions here, Mike, before we let you go. First of all, is most of your money for the campaign coming from the grassroots level, or where are you seeing money coming from when it comes to your campaign?
Good question. Mostly from the grassroots, people that have an integral desire to do something good, something beneficial, and see their lives improve.
Yeah, because obviously, I always look at it, if the people, the average individual out there is given, $50, $100, $200, whatever it is, I see that as energy. obviously, for your campaign, and that's, I think, is essential. I think the most important question that I have is this: why do you think California is worth fighting for, Mike?
Because I remember coming out here in approximately 1980, almost 45 years ago. And when I came out here, this was the epitome of what every American wanted. Whether you wanted to be a fireman, an astronaut, whether you wanted to do something, go out and go surfing, for all that may be the case. But the opportunity for success, prosperity, and to do it in an environment that is probably the best place on this planet to come here from a climate perspective. Everything was positive. We had the best schools. They're atrocious now. I think we rank at 47 or 48th. Everything was good about this state. Business. Everything that comes to my mind was California from a good perspective. Now we're at the bottom. And we got to turn that around, and we're doing that.
If folks want to help you out, they want to donate, they want to volunteer, where would they find you?
They can go to www.votemichaelkoslow.com. That's K-O-S-L-O-W.
K-O-S-L-O-W. Make sure you give them a like. What are some of your platforms, social platforms that you're on as well? Facebook, X?
All of them, actually.
All
Facebook,
of them.
Yeah, we're there.
Instagram?
We're there too.
Okay,
So,
great. So follow Mike. If you want to be a part of his campaign, you want to give towards his campaign, check him out on those social media platforms or check him out on the World Wide Web. Mike Koslow, Godspeed to you, and hopefully you won't be a stranger to the show. Hopefully you'll come on from time to time.
I look forward to it.
I think you know the guy that hosts the show.
I do. I have a personal relationship.
That's great. All right, when we come back here on Politics in the Pulpit, we'll be talking to another candidate who is hopefully to upset the apple cart here in California, Christina Irwin, who's running for state senate, and we'll be talking to her in just a few moments on your hometown station. All right, we're back here for our final segment, but we have, of course, left the best for last. It was great talking to Mike Koslow, but right now we're going to end the show on a high and positive note with Christina Irwin, who is a mom, a first-generation immigrant, and a community advocate who is running for Senate District 24, which includes, by the way, the Pacific Palisades and so many other wonderful cities in that district. Christina, how are you?
Hi, Pastor Cook. Thank you for having me on. I am well on this cold day.
Yeah, isn't it funny that a week ago we were like in our bathing suits, and here we are today with our jackets and sweaters because we just had some wind and some rain, and I guess we're going to get some more next week. So if you don't like the weather in Southern California, just wait a minute.
Literally, wait a minute. Exactly.
Exactly. So since the last time we had you on the show, Christina, obviously you've now officially filed. The deadline was just a few days ago. How's the campaign coming along? How are things going, and how can we help?
Thank you for asking. Yes, I have officially filed. It's going fantastic. Got an endorsement from Senator Tony Strickland, Senator Shannon Grove. We love her. Assemblyman Carl DeMaio. I mean, the list, I'm so thankful, just keeps growing and growing with great, great people. So it's fantastic. I'm always looking for donations. You know, I am the only Republican running against 10 Democrats, and money is going to be an issue. So if people, want to open up their wallets and feel free to donate, they can find me on my website and the little donate button. I think it's highlighted in bright yellow. It's ChristinaIrwin.com.
Irwin.com. And of course, your district is rather large. I mean, obviously, we've got Rolling Hills, we've got the Rolling Hills Estates, Santa Monica, Torrance, West Hollywood, Westlake Village, Los Angeles neighborhoods of Bel Air, Beverly Grove, Brentwood. I mean, this thing goes on and on and on. But I think the highlight here, unfortunately, because of the news from a year ago, was, of course, the Palisades fire. You were at the rally a few weeks ago. They Let Us Burn rally, where Spencer Pratt, of course, made his intentions public that he's running for mayor. What was your perspective on the ground as you were talking with people and interacting with those who have had their homes burned down and they've not been able to build? What was your interaction with those people?
It was a lot of passion. it was a lot of disappointment in how could the people that are supposed to represent us, how could they let us down? How could they let us burn, basically? That's exactly the sentiment I was getting. And, I was thinking, my goodness, Spencer better announce that he's running for mayor, because we need somebody. We need somebody competent, not Karen Bass, and not someone that can't do their job or doesn't want to do their job. And when he announced it, the crowd went nuts. So it was a great time. That moment.
And not only that, I think Steve Hilton was obviously featured prominently down there as well. And it seems as if, it's unfortunate because to me, I watched a lot of that on YouTube and I saw some of the clips later on. You're kind of hoping that a rally like that would get the attention of elected officials, mainly Democrats,
Right.
let's be honest.
Right.
But in reality, it seems like they turn a deaf ear to that kind of stuff and look at you as if they're kings in a lofty castle and the rest of us are just peasants that have to eat whatever bread they have left.
Yes, exactly. Moldy bread.
Yeah, and it just seems like they don't listen. And as I was talking to Mike Koslow before you came on, Christina, I don't even know how Democrats have the audacity, the dignity, whatever word you want to put in there. Why would they even run when their nasty fingerprints are over all of the failure in our state?
They're tone deaf. They're tone deaf. They are all about control. They don't care, clearly, as we've seen from the Palisades fire. They don't care about their constituents. It's all about power, money grabs. How much money can they make through NGOs, through the homeless industrial complex? That's what it's about. It's not about, wow, what can I do for my people? How can I help my neighbors, my community? They don't think like that.
Yeah. How is your run affecting family life? I know that we somehow romanticize people that are running for office, but obviously you have a family. How are you balancing all of that with your run?
Well, speaking of which, my daughter's on the other line trying to call, so it's always like that. And I'm texting her, Mommy is on a phone call. I'm doing an interview.
Say, you're talking to Pastor Cook. You can't talk right now. Exactly.
So it's been a whirlwind. I mean, they remember when I ran in 2022, so they kind of know what to expect. It's funny, though, Pastor Cook, before they were younger, and they were more like in awe about it. Now they're all teenagers, so please pray for me, but they're all teenagers. And it's a different kind of, Mommy, I need you. Mom, I want you. Mom, can you find this? Can you do that? So they get it, but it's been tough. It's constantly a balancing act. But I'm grateful and blessed, and I wouldn't change it for anything in the world.
So you said that there are 10 Democratic opponents vying for that seat.
Yes.
Can you tell me, out of the 10, obviously they're not all viable, but who do you think are the ones that we really need to concentrate on?
Honestly, there's no such thing as a moderate Democrat. I mean, maybe when you're speaking to them, if it's you're friends with them or an acquaintance, sure, they can come across like that. But you and I both know once they get to Sacramento and they're standing in front of people like a Scott Wiener or, the other ones that are so corrupt, those guys are the ones pulling the strings. There's no way these so-called moderate Democrats, that are here today vying for the state Senate seat are going to just shut down and say, you know what, Scott, I'm not going to do that, or assemblyman is, or state senator. They have to follow their lead because these are newbies, and being the only Republican, I mean, I have great people, like I said, Assemblyman Carl DeMaio, Shannon Grove, Tony Strickland, even the amazing Gloria Romero endorsed me. These are the people that I'm going to be working with. So I know I'm going to be doing a good job. I'm listening to the people and I'm hearing what they want. I'm not going to be bought, by these ruthless politicians that just want to control everybody.
Yeah. And if folks want to donate to you, Christina, if folks want to volunteer, if folks want to get to know you a little bit more, again, give us that website information if you would.
Sure. It's ChristinaIrwin.com, Kristina, Irwin, IRWIN.
And obviously, we're going to see each other in, well, we probably will see each other before the Liberty Gala, but we definitely will probably see each other at the Liberty Gala. And looking forward to seeing you there. And Godspeed to you on this campaign. And again, check in from time to time here on Politics in the Pulpit and tell us how things are going.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and I will see you and looking forward to that event. Thank you, Pastor Chris.
All right. Christina Irwin, running for State Senate in District 24. Thank you so much for calling in today. We had a full day. It was great talking to Mike Kozlow in person, of course, and then, of course, talking to Christina Irwin, who, of course, is doing a great job as she's running for State Senate there in District 24. And, folks, just keep this in mind. We romanticize, as I said, some of these folks who are running, and we think that, they're just, all the money is coming in and they must, buy their own suits with that money and stuff like that. No, there are actually some election laws and campaign laws that go into effect that says, you can't take that money and just, go out and do whatever with it. Unfortunately, when you get into office, it seems like people do that all the time, and there doesn't seem to be any accountability, and that can be a bit frustrating for voters like you and I. But I really hope and pray that this year, 2026, California turns a corner and decides to just, give the Republicans what I would like to consider the common sense party here in California. We've had Democratic rule, one party rule, folks, for so long. And you see where we are. I just noticed today that gas went up by a dime since yesterday, at least in my area it did. And just a few weeks ago, I was buying gas for $3.95. I saw $3.89, and I'm like, that's a deal for us here in California. Other states, of course, are laughing at us, thinking that that's a bargain. But for us, that's a bargain. But now it's back up, at least in my area, to $4.35. And if all the news I've been hearing about the closing of the refinery in Benicia is true, we're going to have $7 to $8 gas by the end of this year, which frankly might bode well for the Republicans, because that's going to hit right around the same time that we all go to vote in November. Don't forget, the June primary is June 2nd, but the ballots will come into the mail to your home by May 4th, May 5th. Get those ballots filled out and mail them back in. I know some of you out there don't like that, but I'm going to tell you, we need to beat the Democrats at their own game. Get those ballots in as soon as possible, and let's make some good, righteous, godly choices when it comes to the people that are going to represent us here in the state of California, from governor all the way down to school board. We are the only people in California that are going to have the say. And so, folks, we need to get off our backside and pray and get it done. Thanks for tuning in today on your hometown station to Politics in the Pulpit. Looking forward to catching back with you next Wednesday. Same bat time, same bat channel here on your hometown station.